Hello everybody, it's Stella Toad, and today we're going to be talking about a realistic kind of layout for colonizing Mars. By no means is it complete, but it points out some major flaws in the image that everyone has in their minds about doing this. So when you imagine Mars, you're imagining 3D printed structures, kind of domes sticking out of the ground everywhere. You're imagining whole fields of solar panels. The solar panels are probably pretty accurate. But think about this. Look at the 3D printed buildings we have on Earth. They take a long time to print, and they have to have people standing around them kind of troubleshooting them all the time when they do stuff wrong. Not only that, but they have to have a completely level slab before they can actually start printing anything. So what is kind of making us think like, oh yeah, 3D printing stuff is going to be the way that we have buildings on Mars, when 3D printing buildings on Earth doesn't even work that well? It seems like, to me, it seems like a convenient way to say, oh, the technology's not there yet, because we have to be able to fucking make buildings appear like gods before we can do anything, right? It seems lazy. A main problem that I see happening with 3D printed structures, if they actually did happen on Mars, is that Mars has a lot of dust storms, and 3D printing leaves all these kind of ridges everywhere, and every ridge has a little point that's not like a point, but it's round, sticking out. And I think that's going to just get chipped away at by sand until there's holes in the structure and it's no longer airtight. And I think they're going to have to be replaced really often, and it's just going to be a nightmare. Now, bricks are something humans... Okay, yeah, we're filming. Bricks are something humans have been using for thousands of years. It is a square of Earth that is made squarular, and they stack the motherfuckers really high. That's how we do buildings, basically. It's all brick, but you don't got wood on Mars. But yeah, brick. Using sintering, you can either use a Lorenz laser, or you can use microwave radiation to melt the soil of Mars into hard but kind of brittle bricks. And these bricks have very high compressive strength, but no tensile strength, so you can knock them down. So you can't pressurize them. Is that a problem? No. Because the thing is, you're going to need an autonomous infrastructure on Mars to get any other infrastructure on Mars. But the thing is, once you have autonomous infrastructure on Mars, it's just so easy to colonize that it's like, why wouldn't you? Because if we have all of these buildings made of brick that protect you from the radiation, because you need protection from the radiation for a lot of tech equipment, like if robots are going to repair other robots or something like that, well, then you can put a human in there. You know, especially if they have a self-containing inflatable habitat, you know, with a water recycling and all that shit. And there's models of that. Now, another workaround, if you're immediately trying to put humans on Mars to the brick thing, is just to bury the bricks. Because if you bury the bricks, then the Mars is going to keep the bricks from going. And there can be air. It's quite simple. There can be air if the bricks don't knock down because there's dirt on the outside. Now to the sintering part. Recent experimental research shows that Martian and lunar regoliths, so that's LMS1 and MGS1 if you're concerned, actually have impressive tensile strengths when you melt them into a brick, when you sinter them. And these strengths are 25 to 40 MPa, which is either megapascals or... No, that's megapascals. That's megapascals for sure. But yeah, 870 psi strength limit, which is quite a lot for a brick, especially with, you need a lower strength in lower G, so if there's 1/3 gravity, you only need about 1/3 the strength, and that's approaching what a regular cinder block would regularly be. So bricks are plenty strong enough, especially if you bury them. But better than burying a block. I had no reason to say better than burying a block, but better than burying a block is pretty fun to say. There's a lot of techniques to making blocks on Mars. You also have biomineralization, which is, it's basically... They use regular chlorella vulgaris. It precipitates calcium carbonate into the regolith, and it hardens. So this would take a lot less energy than sintering the blocks, but the blocks that are produced are a little bit under the actual low G strength requirement that they have, and so they have to kind of develop the technique more. But I think it's promising. But you know, you have sintering. Sintering makes blocks that are strong enough. You can use microwaves, you can use a Lorenz laser that traps the sun Microwaves, I think, are the best way to do it because I'm not opposed to nuclear power on Mars. Sabine Hassenfelder is opposed to nuclear power on Mars. I'm not entirely opposed because we have little nuclear units that we use on submarines and things, and I feel like if you landed the ship with one of those and then hooked it up to the base, that would be a good way to have power to where each ship that landed was now a new generator for the colony. But bricks, if you don't have humans there to put the bricks down because they're going to die if they try to put the bricks down because the environment hates them, what the fuck? But basically DARPA, and that's as simple as it gets. DARPA has these fucking dog bots called SPOT, which I forget what the acronym is, but SPOT can do a lot of shit. And it has this giraffe attachment. And this giraffe attachment is a big spinny claw type thing that goes like that. And it can grab all sorts of crap. So basically, you deploy like fucking 500 of those, and they can move bricks around, right? And if they have, like, if you give them the right kind of prosthetic on their head, they'll be able to switch out the other robots' claws for other things. There'll be spots that can put down mortar, you know. I feel like that would be extremely efficient. Just brick and dog bots could build, you know, great buildings. There could even be digging bots that actually dig for these things. But we're going to get into something better than digging. We're going to get into that. Now, how do you pronounce that? Koshneves, and a bunch of other scientists were basically doing a study on Martian analog caves on Earth, and they revealed that the more autonomous a system is in a cave, the better it performs, because obviously it's kind of hard to control something that's in a cave. And also, the more robots there are, the better they perform. So if there's 50 robots that are all autonomous building something in a cave, I feel like they're going to perform very well. So if we land the colony ships near an alcove, you know, an alcove is like something where there's these big rock borders or kind of basically a naturally occurring hole where you can get into and be protected from the elements and the wind and the radiation, you know, that's near a cave, a lava tube. That's the ideal place because you can start building structures in there and actually, you know, it's a safe enough environment where humans can work on it. You can reinforce them for pressurization, all sorts of shit. It's basically an ideal place to start a colony. Spot robots wouldn't only be useful for building stuff, but they could map caves. Now, they're not the only robot that could map caves, because there's also the Sphere-X robot, which is basically a sphere, which with all the capabilities of a smartphone, that has little jet propellers on all sides, and it can move around. And you basically get the concept. It's a floating sphere, it's a Sphere-X, and it does mapping. It would work well. And also, these spot robots would work well, but they would work even better with both of them. So, really, the best way to go about this is to get the autonomous infrastructure going on Mars, and that's going to make it so fucking easy for human infrastructure to happen, to where it's going to be like, why the fuck would we not colonize? Now, let's take this simplicity concept a little bit farther. When Perseverance was launched, the launch capacity of their rockets was much smaller. When all of the rovers were launched, our launch capacity was smaller. We have a much larger launch capacity now. And the thing about Curiosity is that it can't travel up a hill of more than 20 degrees, and you can look it up. It can't travel up a hill of more than 20 degrees. That's just bad. Especially if a human's going to be in it. Imagine getting to a hill and being like, oh, I'm dead. My Mars rover can't move. So really, we have deserts on Earth. Mars is a massive desert. It's a very soft, kind of fluffy desert with some weird properties, but we have some deserts kind of like it on Earth. And the best way to go about this is to use regular off-road technology. You know, regular, like the basic frame for a regular off-road automotive with larger wheels for more surface area, maybe widened out a little bit, and that'll work just fine. And the thing that's great about this is it will drastically cheapen the parts that you need for a vehicle on Mars. It'll make it so that the regular automotive industry can easily kind of segue into it and, you know, be getting these vehicles for people. There's a profit, you know, there's a market for it now. that's how you get people to do a thing. That's how you make a successful project, is to make a market for it. Now, why would you want to live in a cave? Well, these caves on Mars, they're not regular caves. Mars has 1/3 of the gravity and no water plate, so you can go down a lot deeper. Some of the largest caves on Earth are underwater. There's no water plate. All the water that there is frozen in lumps in specific pockets, so you're not going to be stopped anywhere. These caves also, besides not being radioactive or having dust storms or micrometeorite impacts, they also have higher air pressure, because lower down in a planet you go, the air pressure increases, so there's going to be more air to use as fuel, to feed your plants, to making oxygen out of, whatever. It's more resources, okay? So when you go lower down in a planet that's dry and desertish and hellish like Mars, it's better. So that's why it would not be on the surface, because domes on the surface are going to take a lot of damage because they're constantly getting sandblasted. And they're not going to last. That's just the basic... Architecture is architecture. It's not... Sci-fi things can last forever because they're CGI. But we're humans. And nothing is ever going to look like that. And that's fine. So let's go put some regular fucking buildings on Mars. Now, another thing about the caves is that it's tectonically inactive. So there's no... Like, you can go down... You're never going to hit lava, basically. Maybe if you go down deep enough, it's going to get hot. But... Well, the deeper you go down, it's also going to get warmer, too. Okay? We're going to get into the temperature in a minute. But there's a lot of benefits to being in a cave on them. What I was saying about the pressure is especially true in a place like Hellas Basin, which is the lowest elevation detected anywhere on Mars. And there are, if I'm not mistaken, a few lava tubes that are openings there. So I think that would be a really good place to land a ship. Now, another problem is perchlorate, but there are actually bacteria that break down perchlorate into chlorine and oxygen. And that's a great thing, because chlorine is much less toxic to plants than perchlorate, even though plants can handle some perchlorate, especially, what's it called? It's some type of bean, I forget what type. But yeah, basically, these bacteria can be used to turn a poison that makes life inhibited into actual oxygen and chlorine. And you can collect chlorine, turn it into cleaning agent, do whatever you want with it, save it as just a chemical you can use for production if you want. I don't know. Maybe there's some things you can do with chlorine that I'm not aware of. So the temperature. So, human colonization. Basically, in 2010, Léveillé and Datta, that is the last names of two scientists, they conducted a study. And they found that basically shields offer protection against micrometeorites, radiation, all that. But also, they were tested that 50... what does this fucking say? What is this? 79% of caves that were surveyed had a temperature around the cave much higher to the, existing area farther away. And also, 59% of these caves had a temperature delta over 20 Kelvin. So they were 20 Kelvin or more warmer than everywhere else. 20 Kelvin is a lot. Like, especially when it's fucking negative 200 everywhere. 20 Kelvin is a lot. That brings things up quite considerably. And it's a misconception that Mars is completely cooled. It might have a warm core. They're not entirely sure if it has a warm core, but it very possibly does have a warm core that's just very small. And see, the further you go down into the planet, you're going to get more of that, core warmth. But yeah, essentially, if you land near an alcove that's next to a cave, you can use robotics and bricks and regular off-road vehicles to create an infrastructure. Not a human-based infrastructure quite yet, but after there's caves, and the robots are in those caves, it's super easy, especially if after they have charging docks, loading docks, storage, the infrastructure for the robots. After they have that, it's super easy to add human integration into that. So basically, one paves the way for the other. And yeah, if you have anything to add to this, comment it in the comments. Please leave a like, subscribe, share. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great rest of your day. Peace out.